Dun 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 dun. I mean, it's just the music is so good. Hey everybody, it's the Boon, and I'm here again with Josh, and it's the Screen Sermon Podcast, and we're back to talk about T2 Judgment Day. I don't know, widely considered, I think, to be potentially the greatest sequel of all time, and probably up in the upper echelon as far as greatest action films of all time. Josh, welcome back. We are in week 2 now of our little mini Terminator arc, which I promise everybody out there that it ends after this week, at least for now.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. I was looking forward to watching this, especially after last week. I'll watch 3, 4, and 5, but no guarantees on if we're covering those or not, because, we'll see.
We kind of touched on it last week. I mean, I've seen the third one and pieces of, I think, one of the other ones, but outside of that, I haven't seen Salvation, which is the Terminator film that I think I always wanted to see, but I've heard that it's really bad. And then the one with Daenerys Targaryen, I didn't see any of that.
I mean, if the circumstances lead to it and or people request it, then sure. Yeah. But otherwise, sure. For now, fuck it.
Well, and you pointed out, because I had no clue that it was happening, but when you pointed out that there's a fucking Terminator anime that's coming out, I got super excited. And so that, of course, makes me want to dive back into the universe a little bit. But from everything that I understand about the sequels really beyond the third one. I mean, I told you last week, the third one has some redeeming qualities, but overall it's not a great movie. So it's really beyond the second one. It's like, I don't know how much of this universe I really need to delve into. But that being said, it is one of those franchises where when a new one comes out or a new something comes out, I get excited.
And you know what? Fucking just to jump headfirst into it and start talking about T2 a little bit. I think that, I get why it's such a big franchise and why there are so many movies. Mm-hmm. But starting in this film, it sort of shoots itself in the foot for making new ones, because it lays out a specific timeline of events. And then as you do sequels, you have to either adhere to it or retcon it or simply fuck it up. And that creates an issue, because you have to work around that.
Yeah, it very much, it builds into the... See, and I think they do a decent job of giving you an out, because they give you this is the set timeline as we've understood it in the future that has happened, which is why these machines are sent back in order to alter the past. And then you have that no fate but what we make it line from Kyle Reese that they, again, kind of delve into. In this one, she carves it into the picnic table thing, and John is very up on the phrase. I forget exactly what the quote is, but he's effectively saying, we have the ability to change the future by making changes in the past. And so it does give you the opportunity to just say, okay, all that stuff that happens in the future, we can just erase it.
Okay, but yeah, counter argument, there's 3 more fucking Terminator movies, so obviously they didn't fix it.
Yeah, and I don't know how any of them... Because shit, it's been so long since I've seen Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines that I honestly can't remember how it kind of continues the storyline. Because T2, I think, wraps it up pretty well. You're just like, all right, well, it's over, I guess. But obviously this franchise has moved on since 1991. And there's been, 4 other major films? Terminator 3, Salvation, Dark Fate, and Genesis, I think, is all of it. Not to mention the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I've never seen any of, the television series, but I'm a big Summer Glau fan. Thanks, Firefly. But her is actually, I don't know, is she a Terminator in that show, or is she Sarah Connor? I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure how they kind of go off of this, the finish to T2 and into the next films, because at that point it's just becoming... And I think that was part of my problem with Terminator 3, is it kind of just becomes, you're doing the same shit that T2 did, where it's like, well, now he's a like a college age kid, but we're gonna send the newest iteration of the Terminator back to kill him, and then we'll send a T-800 back to guard him and all this other stuff. And it just, you're basically trying to rewrite the same thing.
Making T2 Part 2.
Yeah. And without Linda Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't think she's in T3.
She was in the fucking last two.
Yeah, she ends up coming back, right?
Well, what the fuck? And who the fuck does T3 follow? Because you got rid of Kyle Reese. Did they ever say what happened to him? I know there was he was in this movie in like a dream sequence flashback kind of deal.
He was?
I might have just watched the cut that has that.
Okay, because I don't recall that at all.
But yeah, he had this scene where they were together, and I don't know if it was like her being in a state where she was like imagining it, or if it was like memories or something. But did they ever say what happened to him otherwise?
I don't think so, because like what happens to Kyle Reese prior to the version of history where he goes back in time to protect Sarah from the Terminator? Because obviously in that film he's killed by the Terminator.
Right.
But I outside of that timeline, I have no idea. And that's getting into some... I mean, that's the danger zone of doing anything regarding time travel as we get into that, as heavy spoilers would say, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, where it's really hard to kind of explain.
What the hell was that?
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly?
I'll just fucking say it. Don't no-sell it.
That's what... shout out to Paul from Heavy Spoilers, a YouTube channel that I follow quite heavily, and that's how he always does it, is whenever we're talking about timeline stuff, he always calls it timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. But yeah, it gets complicated, because what happened to Kyle Reese in every other version of the future where he didn't go back to stop Sarah from being killed? I have no idea. But I'm assuming we're moving forward, right? Because, I mean, I guess we're existing in a timeline where he was killed in 1984 by the Terminator. So he doesn't exist.
Right, but doesn't the future that the T-1000's from take place after that?
Yes.
This is timeline-wise?
So he does theoretically exist in that timeline?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Fucking confused at how it works, but I'm not gonna work on it.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, time travel makes everything messy. It makes everything difficult. And you really got to have like a flow chart to try to figure out who's supposed to be where and at what time, and how it makes sense for them to be.
Back in time and was killed, then in the new timeline he was already dead.
Right. So then why would he have ever sent himself? No.
Yeah.
Why would John have ever sent him back?
Yeah.
To protect Sarah if he never existed. Yeah.
So the fact that the timeline, the future timeline's still going on in the state that it is, means that the events of the first film essentially were of no consequence.
I think you're right. I think you may be right on that. Yeah.
And then
maybe they were just trying to and I don't want to get Loki on this, and I know you don't know what that is because you don't watch Loki, but what? Jesus, what a pull. But if maybe that was literally them just trimming that one branch of time,
I guess,
because in that timeline John would have been killed by the Terminator unless Kyle Reese went back.
Yeah, and I guess, not that I didn't, Kyle Reese wasn't important, but like comparatively, fuck this guy. It's the point is to conceive John. Even though, as I touched on last week, that has its own can of worms. Being trained by the guy that you're going to father.
Right. It's like, well, John Connor taught me everything I know, so then I'm going to go back in time and teach Sarah Connor everything I know, and then she'll teach John Connor everything she knows, which is what I taught her, which is what he's going to teach me. What?
Shit that I made of me.
What?
And all you Hollywood fucks are next.
That's right. Love, Kyle Reese. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the Terminator is in this one, which, you know, I mean, this film has it all. I mean, this film is packed. It's also long. I forgot how long this movie was.
Yeah, I saw the runtime was almost 3 hours. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah. I was like, damn, this is a long flick. I forgot. And I don't, in my personal opinion, it doesn't drag. It never feels overly bloated or anything like that.
Okay, are you ready for my hot take that I fucking told you I was gonna have up the jump?
Yeah, I'm very interested in knowing what's up.
First thing is, after watching Terminator last week and sitting on it for a bit, I love that movie even more. Okay, my real hot take, T1 over T2.
Okay. I don't know that you're alone in that. You're definitely alone in that on this show. I can tell you that.
Both.
Uh-huh. No, and so do I, for sure.
I think they're both great, but I mean, I'll get into specifics as this conversation goes forward. But T1 just had so many hits, and it felt like, you know, it never slowed down at all, and you know, it especially tickled my testicles because it was basically a slasher film with a fucking cyborg. Android. Oh, no, cyborg.
And I've never looked at it that way before until watching it that last time. And you know, you and I kind of came to an agreement on it as well. And I know that other people have posited that thought process, but after having watched it the last time for the show, I definitely agree.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like a fucking Alien situation, because Alien is more horror and Aliens is more action, and this is the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Because this one
and Jim Cameron directed both.
Yeah, this one is first and foremost action movie. I would argue that the other one is a straight up horror movie.
Which, yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah. It's a sci-fi horror film. This is more of a sci-fi action movie. There's not a ton of horror in it. Not that Robert Patrick isn't fucking terrifying in this movie. But the tone of the film itself, not necessarily the villain, is definitely not that of a horror.
This one feels
I agree.
more like a bunch of other 80s sci-fi films had come out after Terminator, and it felt like a lot of that influenced the direction that this went. Even though it was sort of written beforehand, like you mentioned.
Yeah, right. Right, because James Cameron had a huge version of the Terminator 1 script that he ended up splitting into 2, and then this was effectively a lot of that stuff that he cut out of the first one because he knew that he couldn't make it on the budget that he had. And then he decided to pour that into a sequel. But what do you mean? Like, what do you think because I definitely think he could have taken a treatment for a sequel and then had it influenced by a bunch of shit that happened in the 80s, but I want to know, like, specifically what you're pulling from.
You cut out.
Shit, sorry. I wanted to know what like 80s sci-fi stuff you think James Cameron was pulling from that influenced this.
I don't know. Alien was 79, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. It just hits a lot of notes that I associate with that decade and that genre. Okay. I just don't. I'm struggling to think of a specific example. I don't know. Blade Runner, maybe.
As far as like hit the tone,
somewhat. You know, you have your dystopian shit going on, and it had a lot of that in the first movie, but it just feels very of its time. Like Terminator 1 felt super fresh to me and original, and this felt like it was that, but then it also had some like, oh, well, this feels familiar, and not in a bad way. Just
sure.
You know, it felt like oh, okay, I see, you know, what type of movie this is going to be. You know, I referred to the first one as very cyberpunk, and I feel like that still holds true in this one.
Sure.
And
this is definitely a more polished experience.
Yeah.
I think Terminator 84 has a certain it's not quite an exploitation film, but it's kind of trending in that direction, I think. And that kind of gives it some of that kind of that extra boost into the horror category, I feel.
You know what else it might be? It might be the production value, because I feel like this one has a much higher budget than the first one.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god.
Yeah, that also might be part of why it feels that way. The first one felt very intimate, for lack of a better word.
Sure. Yeah, I think, didn't we look it up? It was something like a $6.8 million budget or something for the original, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and this was $102 million.
I mean, the effects
1991 money, that's a fuckload of money.
Yeah, the effects in this one are much better, I think. There's a scene at the end where the T-800's getting real withered and everything, and you can see the endoskeleton start to peel away from the flesh. And, there's also a scene where he rips his arm off the skin, and you see the endoskeleton under that, and all that looks great, and I think that's an actual animatronic hand.
I think you're right.
I'm fairly certain that that's real.
Yeah, I think that's a Stan Winston special right there.
Yeah, he does that, and I don't know how to do those yet, so I can't really get into the nitty-gritty of those, other than I could tell you straight up, they're a pain in the ass to do. Because
I can only imagine.
On the course list for doing that, it's like fucking 37 steps.
I mean, I can tell you...
Each step is like an hour to 2 hour long class.
Mm-hmm. So, it's insane.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I think that 1991 CGI and the way that it's used specifically... Like, it's used to, blend things. It's used to, it's used to help the actor, like specifically Robert Patrick, right? It's used to help him appear to be able to do things that a human being can't do. Instead of just being like, I don't know, a lot of the films of today where it's just like, yeah, we're going to put Omega Red in a Marvel movie. I'm just pulling a random villain. We're going to put Omega Red in a Marvel film.
I fucking wish.
But we... Right, me too. But we have no way to, do X, Y, and Z, whatever. So, just make him CG. And his whole appearance is CG, but he'll be voiced by somebody famous. And it just ends up looking so bad. But 1991 computer-generated stuff, in order to just kind of cover up some things or to help enhance some things to make it look like Robert Patrick is a liquid metal man, it's so good, and it's so old, like it shouldn't work, but it really does. I think that it's an incredibly well done thing.
The liquid effect was fine, but I did have issues with the CG in the fucking, when he starts to form and he becomes Silver Surfer for a couple seconds.
That is definitely when it's the worst, yes.
Yeah, the liquid is fine, but that
fucking Silver Surfer.
Every time it happened, I was like, alright, fucking forming into shapes and shit.
Yeah, so like I agree. I think when he goes full blown silver and he's like walking around, it's when it looks its worst. But when there's other things, like when he's morphing, when he's Janelle, the foster mother, and he's got the knife arm killing the foster father off screen while she's on the phone. Fucking great scene. And then when you see the knife hand come back down and become the woman's hand, I thought that was really, really well done.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Also, that reveal was badass because the kid immediately knew, like... Sorry, John. I call him John. He immediately knew...
John.
He was like, that ain't my mom. She ain't that nice.
Yeah, and, she's being really nice. It's weird.
So, and then Terminator, who all of a sudden has fucking voice mimicking abilities, which was weird.
He had it in the first movie, remember?
Did he?
Yeah, well, he does it twice. I forget what the first instance was, but the second one is when Sarah is calling her mother to check in after he sends her mother to the cabin or whatever so that she could be safe. he's there. He already killed the mother, and he's using the mother's voice to talk to Sarah to figure out where she is.
Oh shit! Completely forgot about that. But Arnie fucking asks for like, what's the dog's name, and John gives him the
Wolfie.
dog's name, and he says the wrong dog name.
Yeah.
And
he tells him the name is Max, and then he goes, "What's wrong with Woofy?"
Because up to that point, I had no idea that was not her.
Yeah.
Until the fucking reveal happens, and that actually surprised me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the T-1000 could just fucking be other people up till that point.
Yeah, and then they explain that kind of stuff, that he can mimic anything that he comes into physical contact with and stuff, and then you kind of get into... Because I remember watching it, like I remember looking for it, I was like, okay, now, at what point did he physically interact with the security guard at, whatever the hell the mental health facility was, I forget what it's called now. And it's like, oh, he walked over top of him because he was splayed out on the floor and made himself look like the tiles on the floor. And so that technically counted as physical contact, I guess, and that's how he was able to become the security guard.
Yeah, that was really, really well done.
Yeah. It's fucking cool, man. I gotta say, I don't know. It's hard. And I think recency bias has a lot to do with it. But rewatching this, I haven't watched this movie in a while, and rewatching it for the show, I was just like, I'm pretty sure, like, don't 100% quote me, but I'm pretty sure this is the best action movie ever made.
I still don't, I never sat there and thought about what I would say for that, but I still fucking lean towards Predator, just off the top of my head. Or Prey. Because, as we've talked about it private, those are like neck and neck for which one I like more.
As far as the Predator franchise, I 100% agree. But I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, the chase scenes, the explosions, the stunts. Like, a guy actually flew a helicopter under a bridge, which is obscenely unsafe. But they did it. And I don't think anything like that has ever been done again, actually. Like an actual stunt pilot doing it. It's always been done, if anything like that has been done with CG.
Fucking OSHA would be on people's asses. Especially since the Twilight movie disaster happened.
Oh, I don't know about this. What happened?
A bunch of people died.
On the Twilight movie?
Yeah. Twilight Zone.
Get the fuck out of here.
Twilight movie.
Oh, Twilight Zone. Okay. I was about to say, how the fuck did they die on that movie?
They got real werewolves.
No shit. So a bunch of people died on the Twilight Zone flick from, like, the 60s?
Yeah. I could fucking pull that up real quick, because I do not remember the details, but I know a helicopter crashed during the filming of that, and a bunch of people died, including a lot of child actors.
No shit.
Let me see. The crash killed actor Vic Morrow and child actors Micah Dinley and Renee Shin Yi Chen, who were on the ground and injured the 6 helicopter passengers. The incident led to years of civil and criminal action against the personnel overseeing the shot, including director John Landis. It introduced new procedures and safety standards in the filmmaking industry. And that was
well, 82. They fucking threw all that out the window for this flick.
Yeah, that was
82?
Yeah, 82. That the Twilight Zone movie happened. 3 fatalities, 6 injuries.
Okay. I've never seen the 82 Twilight Zone film, so I'm not familiar.
Well, shit, neither
for
have
some
I.
reason.
Twilight Zone's my favorite show.
I honestly, maybe this says a lot about me, I don't know, but I've seen a handful of Twilight Zone episodes so that I can kind of quote the hits, but that's about it. I've never really watched anything beyond, fucking Captain Kirk on a plane and the dude who wants to read and he breaks his glasses. Like, those are the 2 that I can just pull from memory. Outside of that, I have no clue.
Fuck, dude, if we ever figure out how to do TV shows on this show...
That would be the one to do.
It's one of them.
But yeah, I mean, this one just has it all. Going back to Terminator 2, sorry. This one just has it all. I mean, the guns, the explosions, the very high tension chase scenes, The stakes are higher this time around. Linda Hamilton is a badass. You know, she fucking got yoked for this movie. Oh my god. Like, what a difference in physical appearance and like the way that she's prepared herself for a role. I didn't read any like trivia or anything like that around this, but I'm sure she must have gone nuts with some kind of fitness program to become Sarah Connor for T2.
She did the fucking Sigourney Weaver, Ellen Ripley thing that I touched on in the first one when I said, oh, I'm surprised that we had your, like, average Jane Doe being the protagonist and she wasn't, like, immediately jumping into being a badass. She was, you know, fucking shit up. And we cut to this, which is, what, 10 years later?
7, I think.
I meant
after the first one
was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it must have been 10 or 11 because she got pregnant in the first film and he's 10 in the second film.
Yeah, so we cut to her and she's in a fucking mental institution and giving a pretty realistic representation of you know, anxiety and PTSD, honestly. And she's become a badass. You know, the one that was hinted to her ended up becoming in the future in the first one.
Yeah.
So we have a whole new, like, it's the same character, but it's a whole different Sarah Connor. Like, she's not fucking around this time. It's the Sarah Connor of legend, basically. Right.
And I love the setup because it's just like, well, she spends this one night with Kyle Reese and learns a bunch of stuff from him and then kind of moves on. And John Connor ends up explaining it throughout the court that she essentially shacks up with whoever she thinks she can learn something from. And then when she kind of, for lack of a better term, milks that person dry of information and training and things like that, she moves on to something else. And so she accumulates all this knowledge, all this survival knowledge and all this, you know, combat knowledge and things like that, and moves on to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, which of course doesn't set up a great childhood for John, but she's just trying to train herself so that she can train him. And I thought that was, you know, I thought that was a cool way to kind of explain, like, how did Sarah Connor, the waitress from the first film, become badass Sarah Connor, you know, in T2. So
yeah, she essentially, I mean, later in the movie, in the third act, top of the third, she has this moral dilemma on whether or not she wants to kill the programmer who essentially creates Skynet, and all this shit kicks off. And I found it interesting that she goes on a warpath to kill him, and she essentially becomes a Terminator-like figure in her own right.
Yeah, 100%.
She's got all these guns, she's like, I'm out to kill this specific fucking person.
When she's got that, like, that tactical coldness about her.
Yeah, robotic like the Terminator.
It was very, very well done. That and she even says, like, when Arnold and John Connor get to her, you know, she's kind of doing like the I almost, and like she never really completes the statement. It's like, well, you could fill that in with anything, like I almost killed him in front of his kid, or I could have shot his kid or something. But I agree with you. I think she was saying, like, I almost became a Terminator myself.
Yeah, basically, there's such she became the villain in the first film.
Yeah.
And
I mean, down to the point where she even had a laser-sighted weapon, just like he did.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah.
To touch on the villain, I didn't care for the villain as much in this as the first one. You
didn't like Robert Patrick?
Okay, so I dug that, like, he had his own powers and everything.
Sure.
Because this is very much superhero filmy to me, in not a bad way. But you got two superpowered people fighting at the end, so.
Yeah.
He's just not Arnie.
He's not.
He doesn't have that charm to him, that unintended comedy to him, and he's not as robotic. To the point where, at first, when he first got revealed, I thought he was another dude being sent from the future. I didn't realize that he was a robot. Whereas Arnie, as soon as he spawns in, you know, you're like, oh, that's... And I guess part of that bias, because I already knew that fucking he's the Terminator. But yeah. I feel like you can tell based on his body language and the way he talks and everything, whereas Robert Patrick's just, it doesn't have that.
When this is Arnie's, you know, second go-around, And we talked last week about all the training that he put himself through in order to be able to like fire weapons without flinching, and you know, stuff like that. Really incredible stuff that he did. And I kind of thought that the whole setup for Robert Patrick as the T-1000 was that he was supposed to be more human, because he is a more advanced, you know, version of a Terminator and things like that. So he's supposed to be more charismatic and things like that. So him posing as a police officer, for example, is perfect for this model of unit, because he can kind of interact with people and have these, you know, these more kind of intimate conversations and things like that Arnold could. I'm cutting out again?
For like last 30 seconds, he cut in and out.
Oh. Well, I was just saying that, like, I felt like that was...
again.
Huh?
It's happening again.
It's still happening? I hear you perfectly.
Yeah, like, visually the frame rate dropped, and you started cutting in and out. Fuck.
Oh, no.
I guess give it a minute. Here, shut the fuck up. I'm hoping that it fixes itself.
Yeah, because I haven't gotten any kind of delay from you or anything like that.
Well, I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on your end, but it might be the storm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay, we'll try this again, because now I think it's fine. Your video sucks, but we're not in a video pod. It's fine.
Right. I just saw Robert Patrick's, like, coming off as a human, or just like a dude that was sent back, as what his character was kind of supposed to represent, just this next evolution in Terminators. Like, they were supposed to become more and more human, or have more and more capabilities of a human. You know, like having normal conversations and being more social and things like that. Whereas Arnold's character definitely would have struggled with that in the original Terminator. Or even in this one, like John was kind of trying to teach him things, and we learned how, you know, a Terminator's CPU works and stuff like that. The more time he spends around humans, the more human he becomes and things like that, which I think we get a payoff on in one of the later movies, where you find out that, like, the T-800 got married and stuff and settled down in a cabin or something. Yeah, I'm not even fucking kidding. I think that actually happens. So yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, right? Like, huh?
Not the same one, right? Because he fucking dies.
That's what I mean. I don't know. I don't understand.
Because this one has all the human qualities, because he was taught over the course of the movie, but the other ones don't come that way.
Right, he learned why we cry and all that shit because of John, but then he melts at the end of it. So that's why I guess I gotta watch these dumb fucking movies so that I can figure out what it is that they were trying to do. Because right now it's just speculation, and I don't know. Like, why the fuck would the T-800 have a cabin and be married in the future?
We could reconvene when the fucking anime comes out.
Yeah, because I want to see it. I want to see what the hell it is. I have no clue what the storyline's supposed to be, but I hope it's about the war in the future, because I feel like that's the Terminator movie that we need to see, and they tried to do it in Salvation, and it sucked.
You keep saying that.
So,
it feels like you're real beat up about that.
Because the movie that I want to see is fucking Starship Troopers, which I know you haven't watched yet, but the movie that I want to see is Starship Troopers, but where instead of the enemy that they fight in that film, it's the fucking machines.
Well, I know it's bugs, you know.
Alright, well, I didn't want to give anything away. Okay, yeah, so instead of the bugs, it's the fucking, you know, hunter-killers and shit, and all that fun stuff, and it's the human resistance against the machines. Like, that's the Terminator movie that I want to see.
I forgot.
But I know that
hunter killers.
Yeah, like their main ground forces are called HKs.
Oh, yeah, sorry to cut you off.
That's okay. That's what this show's about. Cut me off. But yeah, I think this film is fucking incredible. and the fact that it was made in 91 and the effects and stuff like that and all the stunts that they do and how much shit they blow up, it's insane. I will say, to the film's detriment, I had a hard time watching it through an analytical eye, and it's because it's so goddamn entertaining that I just sit there and just watch it like a consumer. Like, I just sit there and watch it to enjoy it rather than trying to look at things and like pick things apart like we normally do. I couldn't do it. I was just sitting there enjoying myself too much. So that is actually, I mean, obviously that's to the film's credit, but it's also a detriment in this case, because I really wanted to kind of pick certain things apart or try to talk about themes or things that I noticed and shit like that. I didn't notice anything. It's such a good fucking movie. I just sat there and watched it.
Well, this was a first time watch for me, so I didn't really know what to look out for. So I feel like I did the same thing because, you know, I don't. I feel like we may have touched on everything thematically that it was last time.
Yeah.
It feels like more of the same in that it's just a continuation of all of that.
Yeah, like you can see how this was part of the original concept. And then James Cameron was like, well, I gotta cut some of this stuff out because I can't afford it.
Because I get the whole, you know, John grew up in you know, foster families and everything because Sarah Connor's in the loony bin and she's training, you know, her whole life. So John didn't have parents, and then he latches on to the T-800 as like a father figure, which is why that ending is so more gut-wrenching than it should be. Yeah.
It fucking got me, man. I'm not saying like that I cried, but I definitely was feeling some emotions there about, you know, that desperation of not wanting to lose this person in your life that you now have. You haven't had it your whole life, and you've got it now. You've got your father figure kind of thing, and you're just watching him slowly sink into that molten steel. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't shed a tear either, but fucking, I will say that's... I forgot it was a sacrifice. I did know that it was, but I completely forgot that. And he voluntarily sinks in the thing because he's like, well, if I live, then they'll use my tech to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And it logically makes sense. So.
Yeah. Well, and I like how he explains that, you know, to Sarah, like, you have to lower me down. I can't self-terminate. You have to do this. Like, so they kind of cover all those bases. But, like, yeah, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form a tough guy or anything like that. Like, movies make me fucking cry. Everything makes me cry. I'm a father. So, like, my stuff around watching a certain video of my children doing something really cool, you know, is enough to get me misty-eyed. So, like, movies make me cry all the time. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It just so happens that this time, him sinking into the molten steel didn't make me cry, but I was definitely feeling that kind of gut punch of emotion. Yeah. And, you know, it's at the end of a very fucking high-octane, you know, balls-to-the-wall action movie, and they still kind of pull that off. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, I'm not a crier either, which you wouldn't know considering the past fucking few weeks, but, the only movie that I think has got me was Coco. Of all things. Have you seen that?
Oh, I've seen it, for sure.
Yeah, fuck that movie. I love that movie.
So this is it. This is our... Let's fucking do it. Screen Sermons, fucking top tier jerkers. You know, for Josh, it's Coco. I'm not sure... What part of that made you cry? I don't recall exactly what in that...
It's been a while. I think.
Or is talking about it going to make you upset?
No. I think it had something to do with the fucking grandma, because I have this... My soft spot is old people.
Okay.
So I think it was something like the grandma was like in the movie, and then he goes to the realm of the dead, and then like something happens, and then he sees the grandma there. She finally, like, you know, she's not in the best of health, and then later she passes on, and the main character meets her in the land of the dead, and she's like able to talk and move around again.
Right, because she's basically mute and and immobile for most of the film.
Yeah, and even prior to other shit that happened in my personal life, I saw my my grandmother in that, and it fucking got me.
Yeah.
My favorite Pixar film too, by the way.
I feel like I remember you telling me that. But yeah, I was trying to think of like what scene. I was like, well, I know that one guy poisons the other guy and kills him, which is yeah, I don't know. But yeah, for me, so my big tearjerker, and I'll have to just kind of wear this as a badge of honor for the rest of my days. Fucking Radio.
I don't really know what that is.
It's not a good movie. That's the other thing. And
that's why
there's
cried.
plenty. There's been plenty of movies that make me cry or make me want to cry. But there's plenty of movies out there that get like some kind of emotion out of me. But the one that I can pinpoint specifically that full blown just had me crying was fucking Radio, this Cuba Gooding Jr. film from like the mid-aughts. And he plays a guy who has a developmental disability of some kind, and he's just kind of inundated at this school where he's part of the culture of this school, specifically the football team. And of course he can't play on the football team, but he's like the equipment guy. Like they keep him around as the equipment guy, and at first like the football players all kind of abuse him and make fun of him and all this other stuff, but over the course of time, like he becomes as important to the team as anybody else and all this other shit. Well, anyway, the point is, there's a scene in the movie, and I'm gonna spoil it because who the fuck cares? There's a scene in the movie where his mom passes away. She has a heart attack and passes away, and she is the most important thing in this kid's life. He's a kid, whatever. This guy's life. That scene did not bother me because I'm weird like that. So his mom passing away and him being in this incredible state of grief and things like that at his loss didn't bother me, not one bit. The part that made me fucking cry is when he finally kind of has the acceptance of the rest of the guys on the football team. I think they had just won some big game or something like that, and they gave him his own Letterman jacket so that he was, one of them. Like he had his own jacket, so he was one of the boys. I fucking lost my shit. That level of acceptance and the love that he was now feeling from the people that he wanted to feel that love from more than anything else. There was just something about that fucking broke me up. And I happened to be watching that with several of my dude friends, and one of which is Mick, who of course is one of the guests on the show, here and there. But yeah, I was watching it with him and several other people, and just trying to hide the fact that this fucking Letterman jacket scene has me openly weeping. And yeah, for some reason fucking Cuba Gooding Jr. got me with Radio. But that'll be one I have to take to my fucking grave. I'll never live that one down just because it got me. I haven't watched it since, by the way, so I don't know if it would get me now. It'd probably be worse now, because now I'm a father. Like I said, back then I
think
yeah.
The other closest film that had me close to fucking breaking down was what the fuck was it? Babe? The pig movie?
The pig movie?
Yeah, because
with James Cromwell?
I believe fucking... I haven't seen that in a long time either. I believe the pig watches his fucking mom go off to slaughter, and I was like, oh!
Oh, Jesus. It's fucking dark.
Anyway, fucking Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fucking scene, man. It's good. It's very emotional, and it's weird because there's a little bit of a fucking juxtaposition between a Terminator who has no feelings and he's starting to gain them, and then you elicit feelings in the audience by watching a robotic entity fucking perish. I don't know if, because he mentions, like earlier, that he's not afraid to die.
Yeah.
And he gives the thumbs up, to be like, I'm okay, even though, he ain't.
He ain't. No, he gone. But like, and I give it up to Edward Furlong in that scene, because he definitely plays that childhood desperation of like, I don't want to lose this thing, but I'll never get it back, kind of. And I mean, I give a lot of credit to him in general in this film, because I thought his portrayal of John Connor was great. and he's not a guy that has a great, you know, a great resume, and he's kind of one of those kid actors from the 90s that kind of disappeared, or maybe he went through some hard times and stuff like that, but I've literally only seen him in like 3 or 4 films, and he was good in the
Cemetery 2.
Fuck, that's right. So I have seen him in at least 4 things.
I recognize
he was in,
because
he was in Pet Sematary 2.
Yeah.
He was in the 4th Crow movie.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was in Pecker. Huh? Pecker. Yeah, the John Waters film. He's a kid that loves photography, and Christina Ricci is his girlfriend, and they fuck in a voting booth at one point in that film. Huh?
4 fucking Crow movies?
The 4th fucking Crow movie, yes.
How many are there?
A lot.
There's a new one coming out this year at an undetermined date.
Is that the Jason Momoa one?
It's Bill Skarsgård.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I like that casting a lot better. Jason Momoa was too fucking big.
And I
too
remember
too swole.
Watching The Crow as a kid, and it was like, well, this is just fucking, you know, edgy. I didn't care for it. It was very, like, edgy, like, shit that fucking goth kids scribble in their notebook to me.
I fucking love The Crow. It's fine that people don't, like, it's not universally loved. Like, we watched it with Jay, obviously as part of the show. I think it was like episode 10 or something, so we're talking 31 episodes ago.
I watched that episode.
And I watch it, but you know what? Actually don't, because the quality of the audio and stuff like that really fell apart on that one for some reason. But we'll have to revisit it another time. But, like, Jay didn't love the film, and I completely understand people that watch that one and they're like, it's not for me or whatever. But there's something about The Crow. There's something about those early to mid 90s action movies that just hit all the right beats for me. And on top of that, I just grew up, I don't know, I was anticipating its release, and then when it came out I got excited, and then when I got to see it I got excited, and then when we got it on home video I got excited. It was just kind of this thing where The Crow was a very, very important movie to me at that age, and so I've always loved it, and I still do. Watching it for the show, it was tons of fucking fun. It's so quotable, has some great characters in it. But anyway, this is about T2, sorry. Yeah, Edward Furlong, I thought, did a great job in that final scene, and he is a guy that kind of disappeared, and maybe he hasn't disappeared, maybe he's on some fucking NCIS show or something, because there's a million of those and I don't watch them. But as far as I know, he had, like, his run in the 90s and he disappeared, and I hate to say it, but I'm assuming he had some troubles.
Just because of him being a child actor?
Exactly. And I know that happens, and it's me stereotyping him, and that's not fair, but I know that was a thing that happened to a lot of kids his age at the time.
Corey Feldman effect.
Yeah, 100%. And like Macaulay Culkin had a lot of problems, and went through some. Yeah, so I just assume that Edward Furlong had some difficulties and disappeared because of that to a certain degree.
His last credit was a 2023 film called The Forest Hills that I've never fucking heard of.
Nope. No idea. No clue.
You're right on the money. He was in a few episodes of CSI New York.
Fuck yeah.
What the fuck was his name?
Yeah.
Oh, him. Alright, so when the movie started and everything, I didn't get behind that character. Young John just feels like a fucking dork.
Uh-huh.
He won me over in the end because, I could see why he's being such a little shit. He didn't have parents. He was with fucking mullet kid I never learned the name of.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the Salute Your Shorts kid. That's the only thing I know him from.
And I fucking knew that scene because there's a meme that was going around on Twitter and Facebook and everything saying, oh, this kid saved the world by instinctively lying to a cop. Yeah. I never knew what the fuck movie that was from. So I saw the character and I was like, oh shit, he's gonna lie to a cop.
Yep. Fuck. Edward Furlong was in Detroit Rock City. Sorry, I forgot that. Oh, and then American History X. Holy shit!
That might be
I'm learning so many things.
That one, you know what? Fucking, not to spoil our next arc or nothing, but why the fuck did I not pull that? Because I haven't seen that.
Which one? American History X?
Yes. That might be something we work in the future.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of those flicks where it's like, it to me, it kind of rings true in that.
Is that going to be too racy to cover?
I mean, what's too racy? I don't think anything's too racy.
That's fair. We fucking did Starlet and the fucking Tangerine. So
Tangerine, yeah. I think if we're sitting there making a statement one way or the other, it could be racy. Where we're like, fuck yeah.
Well, I don't think saying Nazis
skinheads
is going to be fucking controversial. Although, given today's political climate, maybe fucking it can be. And to that I respond, go fuck yourself. Anyway, moving on.
Well, that's why, and I know we're still in the midst of this arc, but that's why we've kind of decided that the next arc is going to be kind of political and military satires. We're going to do a handful of those.
Can't wait
just
to
because
get
we're
canceled in that.
I mean, that's my thing though. It's just like, you can't cancel me. How can you cancel me? It doesn't matter. Like, I have no ad revenue. We've got no ad money coming in. We've got nothing. We're just a couple of dudes chatting on. Right, Tubi. We were here waiting. And then you decided to put your ads on NFL shows. So now we're like, we don't stand a chance. Yeah. So, I don't think either one of us or Cody or anybody else are going to say anything so, abhorrent that people are going to come out of the woodwork. But I do know that we live in a time where people are extra sensitive too. But I also think that they could have already come through the woodwork and said that we hate trans people for the way we covered Tangerine or something, but they didn't. And good, because we don't. And we didn't say anything like that. So, but yeah, it's just trying to figure out what we think is going to resonate. And it's an election year, so political military satire. Sure, what the fuck? Why not?
Fuck them. Starship.
Yeah, and Starship Troopers is in there, so.
Starship Troopers.
And then. That's amazing.
Oh, can't wait for
that. For the record, I'm laughing at that joke, but I love that movie, and I don't want anybody to think that. See, that's what I don't want people to think. I don't give a shit about, I don't like what you said about, Men. I think Men is actually the episode that I think people could have pointed at and said, let's cancel these motherfuckers. Because I didn't like Men. I didn't like the message behind it. I like Alex Garland as a filmmaker, but I didn't hate that movie, but there was a lot about it I didn't like. That would have been the episode to pinpoint and be like, oh, fuck them, cancel them. So, beyond that, you can think whatever you want about my standpoint on stuff like that. I don't want anybody out there to think that I don't like Starship Troopers. I fucking love that movie. Or Starship Boopers.
Just to say up front, I've never fucking seen that, so
right.
I just missed
which is why it's in there. Really, we just had to create a satire that made not a satire. We had to create an arc that made sense to include Starship Troopers so that Josh could watch it.
Yeah, I feel like
because the movie's so fucking good.
One of the heavy hitters that we keep bringing up every time. That's what do we want to do? What have we not seen? Because Terminator was discussed pretty much since the fucking conception of the pod.
Yeah, it just blew my mind that with how. I mean, there's a lot of effects in this film. There's a lot of stunts in this movie too. So if it were another thing where you're like, well, I work in the stunts, whatever, I'd be like, and you haven't seen Terminator 2? Let's talk about it. But there's so much visual effect in one way or another, be it animatronics or puppetry or makeup or
and even
CGI and all that.
Even otherwise, it's fun to dissect. I have, I no skin in the game with stunt coordination, but that opening bar fight scene was hot.
Yeah.
Yes. The dude being thrown into the fucking gas stove was hot. The fucking
awesome.
Him donning the leather jacket while Bad to the Bone plays is fucking hot.
That's when this film, and I like that they do it early because I feel like they set the tone right there where it's like, we're not doing the horror movie thing this time. And it's definitely like, this is going to have a different tone. Arnie's pretty funny in this movie. He has a couple of moments like that where you're just like, that's fucking funny.
Yeah, like,
my
favorite one was, you're not gonna kill him, are you? Well, I'm a Terminator.
Of course, I'm a Terminator. One of my favorites was when they're fucking around in the desert and he's teaching them about high fives and he too slows them. Up high, down low, and when he too slows them, Arnie gives him a look like, I'll fucking kill you where you stand. It was amazing. It was such an affront to him. Like, even as a cyborg, he was about ready to strangle John Connor. I thought that was incredible.
Between that and, fucking Arnie's still just being such a badass. Like, those poor fucking jocks that were trying to help that little shit who was just screaming for help. And then they go to help him, and he tells them to fuck off.
Yeah. And then Arnie whips their ass.
Yeah, and he, breaks their fucking arm. Like,
yeah,
those poor fucking dudes were just trying to be good Samaritans. They didn't do shit. That's when the fucking "you almost killed that guy" line fucking happened.
Yeah, you were gonna kill that guy. Of course, I'm a Terminator. There's a lot of really funny Arnie moments where he's just owning the shit, and like little looks, and like a lot of it's just his facial expressions and things like that. Like when he finds the minigun in the weapons cache in the Mexican desert, and he's just like, he like turns around and looks at John, and he's got that smirk on his face, and John just says, "It's definitely you." It's just really funny. But yeah, I think that it took. So I can kind of understand where you're coming from, and I don't mean to like pigeonhole you or put you in a box or something, but you're a horror guy. Like, you fucking love horror. You always have. As long as I've known you, I've known you your whole life, but like as long as I've known you caring about film, you've liked horror, right? And so it makes sense to me that you would kind of lean toward Terminator from '84, which is absolutely a horror film, as opposed to being able to appreciate, but holding T2 in a higher regard than Terminator isn't going to come as natural to you, because it definitely leans away from the horror element and leans more into like sci-fi action with a hint of comedy in there, and there's really not a whole lot of horror going on except for stuff involving Robert Patrick, who's the villain. So like, of course, it's what it's supposed to be, but yeah.
Yeah, and another thing is I liked Arnie being a heel a lot more. I didn't care for Robert Patrick as much because he just didn't. He was very one-note character. He had his whole like shape-shifting thing, which was pretty cool, but he's in the first act, and then he fucks off for the entire middle of the movie, and then pops up.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's this film had a lot of lulls in between the action for me. And so you have your big fight scene, and then you have like 15 to 20 minutes where they're just doing shit to get to the next thing. And it feels like there's a lot of downtime in this film, whereas the first one, it was just like hit after hit after hit after hit.
Because I feel like the only time you don't really see Robert Patrick and what he's up to is when they're in Mexico.
Yeah, but that's like the whole fucking middle of the movie. Like they have their first scene, he blows up, and then he's gone for a while until he pops up again.
And I feel like that scene must have been just, or that sequence of scenes must not have hit home for you, because to me that part goes really fast.
Well, and it takes me out of it a little bit, because it removes what the first thing had going for it so well, which is the constant threat. When you have your antagonist, absent for a part of the movie, it doesn't feel as dire, because we switch from, okay, well, let's get the T-1000 to, well, let's figure out what the fuck's going on with the origins of Skynet and this programmer, because he's not in that sequence either.
I see what you mean. Making the statement that I thought it might have been like a pacing thing, because this is a significantly longer film than the first one. And that whole so like that whole concept of keeping up this constant threat of, he's there, he's following you, he's stalking you, he's getting closer. they do have these downtime moments where it's like, we got to go to Mexico and get guns in a truck, and it's like, well, he's nowhere around while you're doing that, so we're just going to kind of focus on the character stuff between John and the Terminator during this scene, and then fucking Sarah Connor's gonna go try to kill Miles Dyson, and that has nothing to do with the T-1000 for a while, and there's kind of these things that are chained together where Robert Patrick isn't around.
Yeah, and I feel like that works to its detriment. And I'll say up front, because it might feel like I'm burying this movie, but I fucking love this movie. I just prefer the first one.
Sure.
This movie's great. No doubt about it, but
yeah,
I feel like it does have its faults, and I'd be remiss if I didn't express why I feel the way I do about preferences.
I agree. That's why we're here. But yeah, I was giving you credit about the fact that, like, I don't necessarily think it's a hot take, especially coming from you, and I think that there are a good majority of people out there who would say that T2 is the superior film. I think that's a majority thing. But I definitely think there are people that are in your camp that would say, I preferred it when it was kind of a horror film, like a stalker slasher film, set in like a cyberpunk kind of neo-noir setting. I don't think you're alone in that sentiment. And it doesn't surprise me to hear you say it. And I've also openly stated that, the big bombastic action films from the early to mid 90s are definitely a sweet spot for me. And so I'm just in that camp where this is hitting beats that, I think speak to me, very clearly, which is why I hold it in such high regard and stuff like that. But in no way do I think, based on what you've said, that you don't like the flick. I can definitely tell that you dug it.
Yeah, it was great. And this is a nitpick. It's not a fault of the film, but I keep holding out, waiting for, because when I think of Terminator, and this is prior to watching any of the movies, I'm thinking you have a bunch of endoskeletons at war with humans, and I don't know if that comes in the later movies or if I'm just fucking pulling that out of my ass. But I feel like what I associate it is drones instead of you're like fighting the final boss of the movie, and we haven't got that yet. And I don't know if that either comes later or if that's just something that I picked up from other media, since Terminator is referenced fucking everywhere.
Yeah. So you want to see like the high command versions of the machine army?
I don't really want. It's just that's what I thought I was getting. Like the cover I mentioned last time that I bought my dad had the endoskeleton as the cover art of this movie, and at no point is there a full endoskeleton, from what I recall.
Yeah, other than seeing it in the flash forward scenes of the human resistance war against the machines. Yeah, it's the only time you see an HK in its full glory.
Yeah, we didn't get that at all in this, and I was expecting that. We got the stop motion one in the first one, at least.
Right.
But I thought that there was going to be, like, multiple. And maybe that's a future film, because that feels like a movie about it going on in the future.
Yeah.
Essentially being a war movie at that point, or something or other.
But I told you, it's salvation.
You're telling me that when I think of Terminator prior to this, I'm thinking of T2 and Salvation.
Yeah.
Because this got it was the thumb that I knew, and it was the Hasta La Vista. The I'll Be Back was from the first one.
Yep.
The fucking endoskeleton shits in the later movies.
Yeah, I mean, if that, I feel like in Dark Fate and Genesis, it's still just going to be referential because, God, I can't remember. I know one of them has a Terminator who is a female girl boss thing where she's gynoid, where she's whipping the ass of a very much a similar Terminator to Robert Patrick's in this one. And then there's another one where Emily Clark, who was Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, she plays Sarah Connor. And in that one, there's another T-800 that's sent back, and it's Arnold versus Arnold. They end up doing...
I remember that one picking up some traction in the film circles. Because that was, well, for one, it was when the digital de-aging discourse started.
Yeah.
And also, it's sort of cool to see fucking regular Arnold fight young Arnold.
Yeah.
Because my stance on the de-aging thing is always like, you know, actor consent comes first.
Sure. But with those in mind, I don't know that you ever really get that HK like endoskeleton thing in its full glory, other than the end of the first Terminator film, and then I'm assuming you get quite a bit of it in Salvation, because that is supposed to be a war movie set in this universe. But again, I haven't seen it, and the only thing I know about is that I've heard it's dog shit. So,
what year was that?
I don't know. 2009, I think, or 2008. Yeah. One of the two.
You know what it might be? That was that was around the time where I was going to theaters regularly before I fell out with, because you know, I fell out of film and everything. I was still watching it and everything, but I wasn't like super like I need to see every major thing and all. I didn't pick that up again until the 2020s. I don't know exactly what year. But I remember at the time going to the theaters, and there was like so much promotion of that movie.
Yeah,
it was one of the Terminators, and there were like these big pop-up setups advertising for the movie, and the trailer would play everywhere. So that might have influenced how what I associate with the franchise, honestly.
Yeah. And just going through Terminator and T2 again, there is a part of me that is thinking I want to watch the other ones just so that I can kind of familiarize myself with the rest of what they did, especially to give myself a good base before this anime comes out, because I don't even know what the anime is supposed to be centered around. I don't know what the setting is or what the point of it is.
I didn't hear anything. It doesn't even have a release date, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's a very vague teaser that's out there.
I'm on Netflix, I believe.
Yeah, I thought I saw that too. But yeah, I think that, like I said, in my opinion, T2, God, with an asterisk, might be the greatest action movie of all time. I do prefer it to the Terminator, personally, but I love both movies. I think both movies are fantastic, and to my knowledge, and from what I've read and seen, the franchise just takes a dive after this. Even though Terminator 3 tries to capture some of the magic of T2, it ultimately doesn't really do it. But I'm glad that we could use the show to introduce them to you, and get you to finally get over that hump and see them.
Yeah, the first two films are great. It's all downhill from here.
And just to be clear, folks, we're not going to be covering T3 or beyond, unless, you know, it comes up later. I'm actually thinking of, so like right now, where we are is, Josh and I are going to be competing at the 96th Oscars in March. We have a 2-part special episode kind of set that's coming. The first week is us making our Oscar picks. The second week is the results of and kind of a review of the broadcast in general. Cody, I'm sure, will also be competing as well, but he doesn't have skin in the game at the moment. He could always change that. I'm game for him throwing his hat into the ring as well. Right now, the only thing that's at stake is if I lose to Josh, I have to watch House, which is a film that Josh has been asking me to watch since the show started in March of 2023. And I refuse, and I said, if you want me to watch it so bad, you can beat me at the Oscars. I'm thinking, and let me be clear, I'm thinking that in no way, shape, or form is House going. What's our side bet?
I forget what the stakes were, but it's whether or not Leo gets nominated for Best Animated Feature.
Oh. Shit. I don't remember making a bet with you about that.
Yeah, you said that it was going to be nominated. I said it's not. It doesn't matter if it wins or not, but if it's nominated, something happens. I just forget what the stakes were.
Happens. I don't remember. But what I will say is that we wanted to do a kind of return the favor thing where if I beat you in the Oscars, I have to make you watch a movie for the show. And, you know, the difference, of course, is like, I really actually don't mind watching House. So I'm cool with it. I'm just, you know, it's a bit for me at this point where it's like, I ain't watching it unless you beat me and make me. So, like, I was trying to figure out a movie to use for you in the same vein, because I know, for example, like, you don't like the Blair Witch Project, and I do. Like, it came out in a specific time. It was perfect for me. At the age that I was at, it came out at the right time. Or whatever. So I didn't want to use that because it's like, well, he doesn't like it. It's not like I dislike House. It's just I've never seen it, and I'm turning it into a bit. And so I'm thinking Terminator Salvation might be mine, where it's like, we'll do Terminator Salvation on the show. I'll force you to watch it with me if you lose the Oscars.
What about the fucking? So what about the 3 and 4 and the ones between 2 and that one?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Sucks, don't it? No, I mean, we might have to go back and do them at another time and just pull Salvation out of order, because I don't think canonically it'll matter, because we're going to flash forward so far. And I don't know how much of, like, 3 is going to be referenced in Salvation. I have no clue, but I need to see... I need to see this Terminator movie that is the one that I thought would make for the best subject matter for a Terminator film beyond T2. But it's no good, from what I understand. And I want to understand how it can happen in a world where T2 happened. Because, like you said, technically it should be over. The war's done. They burned all the shit. So what happens?
No idea.
I don't either. I don't have any of those answers.
Was everything also, once again, inconsequential?
I'm sure it was.
The House always wins?
Yeah. I think so. To me, it just seems like every one of the Terminator films, you go on this journey, but then at the end of it, or not at the end of it, I guess, but before the next one comes out, you're like, well, I guess, you know, technology and AI figured out a way to do it anyway, even despite their best efforts.
You can make the argument,
like destined to happen.
That even if I can't remember the fucking programmer's name, but even if he didn't develop that technology, there's nothing stopping someone else from also developing that technology.
Right.
But there's some logic loops in there too that I don't want to harp on, because it's gonna just make my fucking brain hurt.
Yeah, Miles Dyson, he dies and they destroy all the stuff, but it doesn't stop his notes from existing or whatever, and then...
But they destroyed the notes.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was the point.
It's probably like a flash drive that they forgot or something.
Oh,
it's something dumb like 90s, that.
So it's a floppy disk.
Or there you go. I'm sure it's something like that in T3 as to explain how it can possibly continue beyond that, because it makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So,
and then Sarah Connor's not in that one, right?
As far as I remember, I don't think Linda Hamilton makes any kind of appearance.
Fucking Arnie in it, at least?
Yes, Arnold's in it, for sure.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't think that his character can carry a film. He's good as a complementary character.
Sure.
Not that
he's a side piece. He's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, even in the first one, he's definitely a focal point, but you have Kyle Reese to play as a foil for him.
Yeah,
and Linda
especially
Hamilton.
since that's pre like Humanity T-800.
Right. Oh, I do. Before we wrap up the episode, because I feel like we are winding down, I do want to give a shout out to the guy. I don't know the actor's name off the top of my head, but Dr. Silberman. Like, bravo to that guy. He had a very prominent little tiny role in the first one as a criminal psychologist that kind of comes into the police station to talk to Sarah about what the hell's going on. And then he certainly has parlayed Sarah's whole experience into quite the career for himself in the second one, where he plays the, kind of shithead doctor that's not cool, I mean, for good reason, is not putting her in, like, the minimum security wing and shit like that. Like, she just stabbed him. Like, they talk about that when you first see him. Like, she asks... Yeah. Like, he turns into a clown in this one. But he's kind of a clown in the last one, because he literally walks out of the police station and then this giant attack happens on the police station. And so he gets by the skin of his teeth there. And then in this one, there's this thing happening at the mental health facility. And he just squeaks by in that one, too. And I can't remember if he's in Terminator 3 or not. But I think it's just, he's an interesting little character that they've allowed to survive for one reason or another. I'm not sure.
Like a pseudo Dr. Loomis figure.
Yeah. And I give it up to that dude, because Sarah literally had a hypodermic needle in his neck full of, like, Drano. I was walking around with it. Yeah, it was something like that, like drain cleaner or something like that.
Blue chemical.
Yeah, blue shit. And but I like that it's not like it was just a decision that somebody made, that it's not, you're not holding it up to his neck threatening to give him the shot. You literally have the needle in his neck and you're threatening to press down on the plunger, and you're walking around with him like that. Like, ugh, that must have been so painful. It's easy to kind of put yourself in those shoes where it's like, ugh, that would suck. So big ups to the guy that played Dr. Silberman. Kind of, I don't know, it seems like a fun thing. Like, I exist in this universe too. I'm such a small kind of bit character, but they're allowing me to survive for one reason or another.
Reoccurring character, background character.
Yep. In a couple of films where it's like people, random people, specifically these random people of authority, be they in police stations or this mental health facility, are just getting killed left and right, or incapacitated in one way or another, left or right. Like, Arnie beats the shit out of those orderlies, tossing them through the glass panes above doors and all this other stuff. Like, very... but he kind of gets away, other than, Sarah breaking his arm with the nightstick and shit. But yeah, all of the fun, the fight coordination in both films is fantastic. Yeah, whoever choreographed the stuff did a really great job. Very inventive shit they did, especially that final the final fucking be all end all T-800 T-1000 fight. Yeah, I love that. Excellently done. When he punches him through his face, like through the head, and then T-1000 morphs his head to be his hands, so that he's got him in like an arm lock. I was like, that's fucking brilliant. If you're made of liquid metal and you're like, well, now my head's not there, it's over here, and these are my hands. Smart ass. I was like, that's fucking great. Yeah. I would have never thought of that. That whole fucking sequence is great. It's so good. This movie's so good. If you haven't seen T2, and I know that Josh hadn't seen it prior to this episode, but those of you listening to me right now, if you haven't seen Terminator 2, go out of your way to see it. It's fantastic. Spoil the whole fucking movie. Yeah, fuck it. Who cares? I mean, there's no way. If you're interested in film at all, there's no way that you don't know some aspects of this movie, because you've come across it somewhere. But even knowing, the outcome, or even knowing certain scenes and stuff like that, it does nothing to... It doesn't hold a candle to watching this shit play out. And the amount of time and effort that was put into staging these things, and, it is pretty high-octane thrill ride with some little character moments there in the middle where it does kind of lull a little bit, but in my opinion, rightfully so. So I don't know, Josh. Anything else to add to T2?
No, I think we summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, I think so, and I was very, very excited to use the show as a vehicle to kind of bring these movies to your attention and finally get you to watch them, because, again, as a person who's involved in special effects, to me it just seemed like an important thing that Josh needed to see, at least the first and the second Terminator movies. So for that, folks, thank you for joining us this week as we kind of went on this journey and took a little side path away from our Sean Baker arc, which we will be getting back to next week when we review the Florida Project, and I believe Cody will be back with us, so we'll do a 3-man booth again. But Josh, thanks a bunch for sitting and chatting some awesome fucking sci-fi action movies with me. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed the films and excited to kind of point some more things out that maybe have passed you by over the years, but that's what this show is for, so we'll get them in front of you.
Yeah, I'll probably rewatch these at some point, closer to when if we do 3 through the other ones and when the anime comes out.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and folks out there, please, as always, we always ask you to give us your feedback, give us your suggestions, recommendations for films to review. We're always open to hearing anything of the kind, so you can send that to our email at screensermonpod@gmail.com. You can find us at Screen Sermon on X, or you can find us on Facebook. Really, any of those will work. Also, just commenting on the YouTube videos, it's a really easy way to communicate with us. We've gotten a lot of listener feedback from there and recommendations for films and stuff, so always looking out for those kinds of things, so please do. And in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we'll get back to Sean Baker next week. Thanks, Josh. I won't. You gotta earn it. Hasta la vista, babies.
Yes.